Hello, thank you for joining us on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the program, after spending more than $8 billion on Ajaokuta Steel Complex, Nigeria imports 837 billion naira steel. Chief of Defense Staff General Irabo expresses outrage over connivance of troops with terrorists and bandits. And later on the show, Journalist Hangout Weekend Special is on the criminalization of ransom payments by the Senate. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otutoju and Dare Odufooko. It's good to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
It's good to see you.
Good afternoon.
Right. So, Journalist Hangout starts now. Now, let's begin with the leadership question in Nigeria and the quest by citizens of goodwill to fix the country. It's the 18th edition of the Making a Different Leadership Seminar organized by the Harvest Field International in Lagos, Southwest Nigeria. At the seminar, speakers, including the chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasonye, and our own Babajide Kolade Otutoju called for value reorientation to take Nigeria to enviable heights. TVC News' Nelson Eta has more on the story.
It was President Muhammadu Buhari who said if we do not kill corruption, then corruption will kill us. This was the focus of the 16th edition of the seminar, organized by the training arm of Victory Life Mission International.
It's impossible, otherwise you starve.
The one-day lecture was to commemorate efforts of the Nigerian worker with the theme, Nigeria, a nation in search of redemption. Chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasonye, gave assessment of where Nigeria is in the fight against corruption.
I'm saying that we're dealing with an almost impossible task. And that is not because of the lack of willingness on our part, but because of your complicity, your willingness to accept it, and much more disturbing to perpetuate it.
He also explained the strategy adopted by the Commission to prosecute corrupt public officers.
If you want to be stubborn, then I know I'm concentrating on you. But many times, once your account is blocked, you are in our detention center, we give you parameters, you are ready to go back to go and do the road. Above all, I'm asking myself, what does the community want? The road or this rascal in jail? I think the road will add more value to them, so I get him to do the road.
Registrar of the Joint Universities Preliminary Examination Board, Professor Wale Okunoga, said it will take every Nigerian to have the mindset of a leader to solve the country's problems.
See yourself as a leader. If you have leadership mentality, whatever your age is now, if you have leadership mentality puts some responsibility on you, and that will make you to be able to say, okay, I must, wherever I am, be able to ensure that things work right. And if things needed to work right, then you and I must see ourselves as people that must get involved and allow those things to work by working it.
Celebrate him, please. Let's celebrate him.
TVC News' Babajide Kolade Otutoju, in his lecture, called on Nigerians who have what it takes to lead the country to step out.
Where are those Nigerians that are enamored with unquestionable principles and integrity? Nigeria needs them more as replacements for those who merely claim integrity but never live up to standards of probity and accountability. Nigeria needs hands-on leadership that will show the way and lead from the front in building a country that is rooted on the principles of equity, justice, and love.
He also explained his passion and commitment to the struggle of redeeming and restoring Nigeria as a journalist.
I have committed to doing my best to bring about change in my country. I mean, since I have elected to remain here, then the welfare of our people, the development of our country has to be my overriding concern. So that's the reason I do what I do. I want a Nigeria that I can be proud of. A Nigerian that will be a good place for you and I to live in. A Nigeria that we can pass on to our children, including our unborn great-grandchildren. That kind of Nigeria shouldn't be a bad thing to aspire to have.
The president and founder of Harvestfield International, Abraham Akinola, spoke on the theme of this year's edition.
We called it A Nation in Search of Redemption because we are going right down year after year. Things are so bad. And of course, we all know our problem. Our problem is corruption. The problem of this nation, whichever way you want to define it, it has its root in corruption.
The seminar ended on a singing and merry note as Babajide Kolade Otitoju taught the participants a new song.
Sing Awa ni yo bori don don.
Nelson Etta, TVC News, Lagos.
Quite interesting, and I believe BK will teach us our own round of music when we are done on the program. So, looking at these reports, we've come a long way, and we still have a long way to go. Yeah.
Yes, there is a lot more to do to take Nigeria to that level where we can all hold Nigeria up as a nation that we can be proud of. The way things are going in our country, more and more people are losing hope. And all we can do as journalists is to challenge the leadership of our country to do much better than it's doing now. And there is every reason to challenge them to do much better. Journalists are not trained psychophants. Journalists are not trained bootlickers. The job of the journalist is to correct leadership, push leadership to do its best for the people. Where a journalist fails to do that and becomes immersed in the politics of the day, and he feels indebted to the leaders to not offend them, to not speak the truth, that journalist needs to go and find another job because he has betrayed his calling. So we need to have that Nigeria that we can be proud of. And that Nigeria is a Nigeria where electricity is constant. I mean, if Egypt can have more than enough electricity, my country should have at least enough. If Egypt can get to the point of exporting electricity even to Europe, there's no reason for my country to not at least be able to provide electricity for its citizens. And our country needs to be secure. The way our people are being killed, you know, it does not make any sense. Yeah. So there are so many things that need to change about how we run Nigeria, and it's our duty as journalists to let the government of the day at all levels realize that they owe the people the duty to make things better.
Right, Dare Odufokon, corruption is really a bane of our growth, in our growth as a nation. So, with recent developments, do you think we've made substantial headway?
Well, I would say the battle is still on. Our fight against graft and corruption and the likes is unending, and it will be so. Over time, I've come to look at it that for a long time we depended on this hope that if we have the right leadership, we would get out of the woods. But I have come to realize that maybe we should place less emphasis on leadership after all. Why don't we look at the situation whereby we can become better Nigerians ourselves? I read, and I've heard this severally, that a society gets the kind of leadership it deserves. Maybe we are not good Nigerians after all. Maybe we also need to change our ways of, just like the maestro just said. If a journalist becomes an appendage of either a political party or a politician, for whatever reason, he won't be able to help that politician be a good leader. If you have the opportunity of being friends to politicians or close to them, you must, as a matter of policy and principle, and the fact that you hold this to Nigeria, use such opportunities to point the right ways to them. That politician is your friend. That political office holder is your ally who is close to you, who you have access to. whose ears you have, must benefit from your professionalism by insisting that I will not be like every other person who come here to ask for help. Honorable sir, you have not done this well. Distinguished senator, you are on the wrong track. If you have more persons telling these leaders, as it were, that look, if you have more persons who can look at them in the face and say, irrespective of what you think you owe me or I get from you, you aren't doing it right, more of the leadership questions will be solved. If you have policemen, police sergeant, constable, who would insist that, look, I just want to get this thing right. If you have more of them in the service, even if you have a bad IG, things will soon change. So I am also appealing why we will continue to hammer on the need for good leadership. That we, as a people too, should begin to look at our own contributions to these problems. The killings in the southeast, they're not being carried out by leaders. Leaders are killing us financially, industrially, and the likes. We are not killing ourselves physically simply because somebody threw a kite of we can have a country out of a country, and you begin to kill your own brother.
Yeah, well,
it won't obviously take us anywhere. Well, we must change our ways of even behaving as a people.
We need to race against time. BKO, before we move, change tack, youth advocates. I mean, you actually advocate youth participation in politics, but the current realities show that politics is actually for the deep-pocketed folks.
Well, it was not designed for the deep-pocketed individuals, or for people with deep pockets. It was not designed for them. Our own politics is peculiar in nature. And we have to do our best to change the narrative. We have to come up with laws that discourage the excessive use of money in our politics, in our campaigns and all that. Because, look, it's not only the rich that can bring about change. It's not only the rich that have the brilliance, you know, to make good things happen. There are some people who are not rich, but who if given the opportunity, will do a wonderful job. After all, the former president of Brazil was a cobbler. He wasn't a billionaire, he was a cobbler. So why should we think that only the rich people who can play politics and can win elections and all that? No. When our elections become more credible and the ordinary man who is popular can go into a race and be convinced that he can win, then ultimately we'll have the right kind of leaders.
Right. Let's move on by looking at, you know, these lean times, you know, call for more understanding and rationalization. In Delta State, South Nigeria, the state government is adopting a region finance model with the funds owed it by the federal government to execute key projects. Now, according to Governor Ajaokuta, the state will use 150 billion naira as advance from the 270 billion naira refund it is expecting from the federal government. So, for completion of some critical legacy projects by past and present administrations, as well as payment of outstanding pension to state and local government retired workers. Let's take a listen to Governor Ajaokuta on this.
Our share is supposed to be 270 billion that they owe us as a state. And the federal government has seen that they cannot pay from the federation account 270 billion at a time. So what they have had to do is to now say they will pay over a period of 5 years. And that period of 5 years means they will be deducting money every month from the federation account for that 60 months. But when they deduct the money on a monthly basis, they wait until the 3rd month and make that remittal to the state. So it will be a quarterly remittal back to the state. I haven't realized that this money is already affirmed as something that is owed us. One thing you can do is, okay, can we go by way of promissory note, or we go by way of this, what they call now bridging finance. It's called bridging finance because the money is already being owed you. But you are now leveraging to take a part of the money for the purpose of making payments for contractual projects and other things. So that's why it's called a bridging finance. And what is the situation at the moment? Do we leave the money as it comes? Then you cannot pay. then you are not able to take care of certain things that you ought to have taken care of, because a lot of things have been planned premised on the monies that are being owed us. You continue to leave these projects that are major projects, and eventually the projects are not completed in another 1 year. There's escalation of costs, you have to cause a review to be done. It's only smart economic sense that you quickly find a way of finishing those projects as quickly as possible, pay for them, so that you do not have the further escalation of costs. It's not a good thing. It's not a loan where I'm taking a loan and I'm waiting on the normal allocations to be able to pay back the loan. It's money that is owed us already that is going to come on a quarterly basis. And when the money has value, I'd rather spend that money when that money has value. At this point now, if not for certain challenge they're having, they've already deducted for 3 months. We're expecting that soon they will pay the first tranche of that money. So that means the repayment plan would have started on the 3 monthly basis. And the loan, we have asked for it according to the bridging finance. It does not mean that we're taking the 150 billion at a time. That is not the way it's going. The projects, as the projects are going through, will take the loans.
That was Governor of Delta State, Ajaokuta. BKO, let me start with you. Now, the EFCC has been requested to, investigate the initiation and approval of the loan sum of the 150 billion naira by Delta State government from Zenith Bank. Help us understand the rationale behind this loan.
There are things that people take before the EFCC that are dead on arrival. One, there is no law that says you can't take a loan. If the bank feels that, look, they have the requisite guarantees to give you a loan, they will proceed to give you. Banks make more money from lending than anything else, because when they lend to you, you pay back with interest and all that. They need all that money, so banks will not stop lending. So in this case, what the Delta State government has done is they and other oil-bearing states took the federal government to court over this 13% derivation thing. Now, they won in court. Now, when they won, the federal government was mandated to pay back what was due to them that was not paid to them, effective from, I think, 2010 or so. So that money, the share of Delta State of that money was 267 billion. So the government, the federal government decided, okay, to pay Delta State every quarter, to pay them 5 billion. You'll be paying them quarterly. The state then felt, since this money is there and we have projects to do, why don't we consult Zenith Bank so that Zenith Bank can give what we call the bridging fund. So they then took 150, a little more than half of the, more than half of the amount that is due to them. They took 150 billion out of the 267 billion. They took it as loan, as bridging, what is called bridging fund.
Bridging fund, okay.
So as the government, as the federal government is paying quarterly,
they are refunding.
The Zenith Bank begins to take the money. So what you have is a situation where Delta State wanted a lump sum, and they knew that this quarterly payment of 5 billion would not be enough for them to execute those projects, bridges, and all that are really capital intensive. So that lump sum provided by Zenith has helped them to be able to kill two birds with one stone. Now they can access the fund quickly, use it, and it's tied to that money coming from the federal government. So it's different to the usual loan. You understand? What the governor wants to do is, this is an opportunity. Let me quickly execute this project before costs escalate. Look at cement. Cement 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, was selling for around 1,600. Today is 4,000 naira, for goodness sake, and you will still pay for the cost of loading. So whatever you can do quickly when the funds are available, when the opportunities are there, you have to quickly do it. That is what they have done. It's not like the usual loan. It's they have money somewhere, you know, but you are paying them a piecemeal, and they needed lump sum. They got a bank to guarantee to make that fund available. The bank will now take the money. Once it's being paid by the federal government, then the bank will be taking it.
Well, well, the governor said that he actually is accessing this loan in order to finish strong in his administration.
Because he's actually on his last lap. By May next year, he will have to leave office. You see, in other climes, these are the kind of steps an administration and government will take, and people will applaud that, oh, this is right thinking, this is forward looking and all that. But you know, in Nigeria, we so much distrust the system. To no fault of ours, sincerely. If you have any country of the world where the people have passed through what we have passed through in the hands of our leaders, in the hands of successive administrations who behave like us, to no fault of Nigerians, we don't trust those in power. That is why people can take a look, obviously not a deep look, at the arrangement as it were, and head straight to EFCC. What I think people should concern themselves about now is, okay, this is not a loan that will put any weight on the state government. It is tied to money being expended. And do you know something the governor has also done? That he has found a way of ensuring that his state gets his money. It is not between the bank and the federal government. Because the bank will have taken interest, will have taken other dues that, you know, will be the one to be dragging for this money and all that. So he got the money. He will do what he has to do with the money and all that. But the people should now focus their attention on what the money will be used for.
Monitoring and all that.
Will it be spent the way arranged? Will the projects get the money as at when due? Are they going to see the dividends of this money? They can quickly set up a team, a committee, whatever, to monitor.
You know, I think one of the reasons why people are not, they don't trust this process is because they believe that it's just a year, just a few months to the electioneering year.
Yes.
And then why didn't he access this loan in the 7 years of his administration?
No, this issue was in court. He could not have accessed something that is being litigated.
Yeah.
It was in contention. Now there is a judgment that says you can have the money. But the federal government is saying, well, we are not saying we will not pay. But this is how we will pay in tranches. Yeah. And this, we cannot say why is he taking it now, because if he leaves the project till whenever the money is complete, that money will not do 1/3 of what it will have done now.
Right.
So I think it is forward looking and it is right thinking on the part of the government. But the people should monitor this law.
No, there are NGOs that can come together to monitor. You know, even the West, when they were returning Abacha look to us, they tied it to some conditions that there should be monitoring. And the federal government gave the guarantee that NGOs will be permitted to monitor those projects at every turn. You know, so they can decide to monitor, see where this whole thing ends up. But to say a government cannot take a loan and then because somebody took a facility that you did not understand, you are running to EFCC. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Right. Let's move on to another issue, which is that's according to the law of gravity, which controls our universe. Whatever goes up must definitely come down. But here in Nigeria, the prices of goods and services defy that logic. They go up and keep going up. Amidst rising cost of living, telecommunication operators are proposing an increased price of data, SMS and call services. According to a letter by the Association of Licensed Telecommunication Operators of Nigeria, ALTON, addressed to the Executive Vice Chairman of the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, They proposed a 40% hike in prices of the services. Following this, Nigeria's digital inclusion is facing an imminent threat, as the 40% hike implies that the price floor of calls will become 8.95 naira or 8 naira 95 kobo from 6 naira 4 kobo or 40 kobo rather, while the price cap for SMS increases to 5.61 naira from 4 naira. So the head of operations of Alten Bolahon Awunuga said the review is long overdue, as the last time telecom tariff was reviewed was between 2001 and 2003. BKO, 40% increase, way up high, and it still boils down on energy issues.
Even beyond energy, inflation generally. How many businesses have kept prices at the level they were since 2001 or 2003? They keep changing prices depending on the rate of inflation in the country. But the telco guys have remained on the same price regime for so long. Of course, that is what will make Nigerians happy. Nigerians want to be able to access the telecom services for as cheap as they can come. But you and I know that diesel cost alone can force a change. We have seen diesel costs rise by more than 233%. Now, the telcos use 360 billion to buy diesel. Before it was 30 billion a month. But diesel price rose from 225 in February to 750 naira per litre now. 225 naira per litre just in February here to 750.
And nobody knows where it's going.
That has huge repercussions. Hotels and the hospitality business especially, they are struggling, they are suffering, because how do you, at a time when we are not providing consistent electricity for the people, these hotels have to rely on diesel to power their generators. And at that cost, at 750 per litre, is killing. Even our own business, the broadcast business, is affected too. There are some radio stations now that have decided to cut down their hours of operational hours. The same thing can be said of banks. Banks too are reducing their hours of operation because of this huge cost of diesel. So if these guys they have 33,832 towers and base stations as well. You need generators to power those base stations. No one relies on public electricity supply because it's erratic, it's not reliable. So this cost, the energy cost alone, are enough to push these guys to take a second look at their tariff. And I already read something that the NCC, which is the regulator, the NCC was saying, from the look of things, this tariff increase may be justified. It's difficult when you look at exchange rate. You see how weak our currency is, how it has declined in the last few months, and you look at energy costs. It's difficult to say, no, that these guys cannot increase tariff. So that is the thing. And government is also even imposing duty, fresh duty on the telco business. So at the end of the day, the end user will be at the brunt of all of these increases.
Well, even before the increase, the current prices have been, taking a toll on Nigerians with the pockets. So with these now, it's going to be a stress on our wallets.
Additional stress.
Additional
stress is there.
Yeah.
It's not as if using the services of the telcos have been easy.
Yeah.
It's been, and this is at a time when data and call time is almost like blood to the average Nigerian.
Absolutely.
We found ourselves depending so much on the services rendered by these telcos. Now, we almost cannot do without them. Then the 40% increase is going to come. While I agree with BKO outrightly that looking at it from the point of economy, it will be almost impossible to tell these telcos not to effect this increase. I want us to look at the very last thing he said too was, at the end of the day, the end users, the masses, the people will bear the brunt. And you must also know that most of the things that affect the telcos, that makes doing business difficult for them, that make increasing this tariff almost inevitable, also affects the people.
And the banks.
And it affects the banks. It
Trickles
affects
down
the entire economy.
every sector. Yeah.
So, as one of the end users who understands what this will do to the pocket of the average Nigerian, I will only say that I think the government and the telcos should find a way around it. 40% increase to what we pay already will be killing. It will be outrageous. It will be too much. These are things we use every day. Because of the fleeting use we put this thing to, we don't know how much it is taken from our pocket until we sit down to do some calculations. So we should not add this burden to the people without at least trying to mitigate this in the first place. We must find a way. I want to believe that we may not go as much as 40% if government comes to discuss with telcos and the people are put into consideration. But to just go ahead with this increment now, at a time like this.
And we have also increased electricity.
Electricity tariff has been increased.
Everything is going up.
Because nobody is talking about that. And
Electricity
you know, you need to see the bills. Nigerians are. I went to a community here in Lagos, and do you know that in that community, less than 50% of them now use electricity. It's not in rural Lagos, in central Lagos. And you know what they decided? After complaining, there was a time they packed all their bills together, returned it to NEPA and told them, come and remove your light. They were off NEPA light for like a year. They had to go and beg before it was restored. After a while, it became voluntary. If you know you cannot pay, you remove. And more than half of the residents of that community are not using, because they cannot afford to pay 15,000, 17,000.
Unfortunately, even the people pay for cables,
pay for
transformer. Pay for transformer.
They do repairs.
They buy poles. They buy poles, electricity poles. So at the end of the day, what we serve them is still darkness, and we are causing them to pay more for darkness because there is no guarantee that even with this increase, that we are going to have consistent supply of electricity. There is no guarantee because consistent electricity supply is incumbent on generating capacity, is incumbent on the capacity of the transmission company of Nigeria to wheel what has been generated, and is incumbent on what the discos are prepared to take, because sometimes you give them a huge quantum of electricity and they just cherry pick the communities that they want to supply. Because some communities are notorious for energy theft, some of them are notorious for beating up their staff, some of them are notorious for not paying. So the discos now have to cherry pick the communities to supply electricity. So we have all kinds of problems. This one adding to what we have. I really don't know how the future looks tough. Looks tough for the ordinary man.
It's really an amazing climb we find ourselves, and then with the issues, things happening all around in this country and in the world at large. But let's move on to the first main issue of today, because really it beats logic that a country so blessed like ours lives in penury and relies on import for basic necessities. Steelmakers in the country are miffed that after spending $8 billion as estimated by the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria on the massive but idle Ajaokuta iron and steel plant in Kogi State, Nigeria imported iron, steel and metals valued at 837.76 billion naira in the third and fourth quarters of 2021. So the steelmakers are skeptical about the planned concession of the company by the federal government. We have been on that road before, and that it has taken us nowhere. BKO, let me have the two of you weigh in on this matter before we go to our guest who will be joining us via Zoom. There have been claims that we were producing, but it's clear we're busy importing. So what's happening to the steel sector? Why are we still at this juncture?
Yes, because we chose not to do what is right. If you go to Ajaokuta Steel Complex, because I've been there, honestly, you could burst into tears. I've never seen a company that big. Huge, huge company with overgrown weeds all over the place. You see giant equipment, giant loading bays everywhere overtaken by weeds. And I'm like, what's going on? How could we don't have enough supply of the steel that we need, yet we can allow such a monumental company to simply rot away. What is wrong in saying, okay, we privatize if we cannot manage it? If corruption and other issues won't let us manage it properly, we can privatize so that it does not just lie fallow, lie in ruins like that. But you need to see the pictures. You need to see Ajaokuta the way it is. I learned that when the governor of Kogi State went there, he burst into tears. Honestly, you weep for our country that we had such a treasure, yet we are just wasting away. Successive governments have not shown, in my view, the willpower to revive the Ajaokuta iron and steel complex. I was thinking that, okay, under this regime, they will do something different. But we are talking about concessioning. People are saying concessioning, they tried concessioning in the past, it didn't work. And some people are suggesting that, look, if you must concession, don't concession to a company or to foreigners who have steel infrastructure and all that in their country, that they could sabotage us from within another. I don't know what's the best, but I hope that one day that company can be revived, because we are importing so much steel, and steel is extremely expensive now. If you are building either a bridge or your own house, the cost of reinforcement will drive you crazy.
Probably that's the reason we're having, buildings that are collapsing, because
people will cut corners, because reinforcement is very expensive, so people will not want to buy enough, or buy if you are supposed to buy 16 mm, maybe they will go and buy 12 mm.
Well, there are different different areas within the Ajaokuta. There are building materials. There are some that are actually smithing iron and all that. But is there anything really working in that sector? That company generally.
If it is working, we won't be here talking about it. If it is working, government will not be considering concession. You see, the steel sector is one area Nigeria was receiving kudos in years past. As a youth corps member, I served in Katsina State. I was opportune to take a tour of Katsina Steel Rolling Mill. You need, like BKO said, you need to see. Nigeria governments in the past or whatever must have invested heavily in that sector. I've been to the one in Osogbo too, on excursion as a secondary school.
It's overgrown by weeds now. Go there.
I know that the one in Katsina too, I'm sure it's not functioning. I've not heard much about it in recent times.
Let's try and sit down one in Osogbo.
I was there as a secondary school student to visit. Now, Ajaokuta, I went there as a journalist when this government took over. It is one of those things this administration campaigned with. It's painful when you sit back and look at the pre-2015 years and the high hopes we had in this administration. I am not sorry to say, aside insecurity, this is another area my disappointment in the current administration is almost fulfilling. When you are fulfilled in disappointment, it is sad that we have such a complex. The question I want to ask about concession when I saw it was, why didn't we just concession immediately we came in 7 years ago? Why didn't we just do that? For 7 years, we budgeted for reconstruction, revamping. Every year, check the budget. You find new English word still on Ajaokuta, and the figures keep going up. It started with reconstruction. We moved to revamping. There was no word we've not used.
Refurbishing.
Refurbishing. Today, it is concessioning.
Yeah.
And you know what that means? We want to hands off it and give it to those who can try. For 7 years, taxpayers' money went to it. For 7 years, people were drawing salaries and wages and extra codes on this. I think it's unfortunate that we are still here talking about Ajaokuta. It is sad.
Absolutely sad.
Sad.
You know, BKO, we're trying to establish connection with our guests who will be joining us via Zoom. But BKO, before we have our guests, we've done this concession before. Why does anyone think it's going to benefit anyone at the end of the day? Who are those benefiting in it in the first place? And why do we think this is the way to go again?
No, there is nothing wrong in concession in the real sense of the word. Concessioning is good. Build, operate and transfer is good. I also think that government has not got the funds to throw at all of these problems. So you have to find a way to collaborate with the private sector, either through concessioning or through build, operate and transfer. They can build from the scratch and then transfer ultimately. Angola just built a brand new refinery on a BOT basis. So since we are running out of funds, we need to bring in the private sector, get them more involved, especially in infrastructure delivery. We are not going to find enough money to fix all our roads, to build new ones. You know, we are not going, if not for Abacha loot, for example, and funds kept in the sovereign wealth fund, we would not have been able to do the second Niger bridge, because we had to divert Abacha loot to it, to Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and we had to use funds from the sovereign wealth fund. We had to take money from the sovereign wealth fund to execute those gigantic projects. Because what is the budget of the Ministry of Works in a year? The budget of the Ministry of Works is, the maximum they can get is maybe like 500 billion. Sometimes 400 and something billion. And one of those projects could be even close to that entire sum in terms of delivering it.
Yeah. Dari, well, some have actually advocated, some experts have actually advocated that it should be privatized at the end of the day. But then if you look at Ajaokuta, there is a massive housing project, a machine shop where machines are fabricated, and also a section producing construction materials. So should we rather unbundle it before privatization?
Maybe that's a way to go. Because when you talk about privatization, concessioning, and all the likes, I have my fears, and it's from experience. A national newspaper company was privatized, and at the end of the day, it was as if we gave it to people who had other motives.
Yeah.
Our
asset stripping.
I didn't want to. You see, people, and you are mentioning gigantic structures in Ajaokuta. Some people may just have their eyes on these things, calculate what they will get from selling some of these things, and then they will come for it. If we find ourselves,
we have invested too much on the project to
just give to anybody.
If you see even the quarters that they built for the staff.
The staff quarters.
Oh,
you need to, and then the facilities there alone.
Yeah.
If we talk about unbundling, maybe it will help. Look at what is happening in our electricity sector.
Let me hold your thoughts. Let's bring in our guest who is joining us from Abuja for more insight into the discussion is the senator representing Kogi West Senatorial District at the National Assembly, Smart Adeyemi. Thank you very kindly for joining us on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. Well, we've spent $8 billion, and now we are talking about 837.76 billion naira in the third and fourth quarters of 2021 to import steel. What do you make of this, latest report and things happening around Ajaokuta? Is it a jinxed sector?
Well, let me thank you for bringing me on to this program. It's most unfortunate that Ajaokuta Steel Complex seems to be abandoned. It is inexplicable and it's almost unpardonable. When you take a look at the history of Ajaokuta Steel Complex, when it was constructed, the construction started, the blueprint for the project was to employ 10,000 technicians in the first phase. It was to be constructed in 3 phases, and each of the phases to take 10,000 workers each. The non-technical staff that is being proposed in the concept of this project was to absorb 60,000 non-technical staff. Apart from the fact that this is a project that will improve our foreign exchange earnings and create job opportunities for Nigerians. 7 years down the running, it's as if this project is going to be eventually abandoned. For me, I have reservation about the decision of the federal government to go to embark on concession of this project. We know what happened in time past to projects and sectors that had similar proposals. For me, I think if the federal government is finding it difficult to go ahead with this project, the honorable thing to do will be to hand over this project to Kogi State government. I think we must face the reality that Nigeria is a federation, and I think we are facing the reality now more than ever before. In Kaduna State, the state government established a steel plant with about $600,000 loan facility, but again, it's completed. So if you allow Kogi State government to take over Iron Steel Complex, it's going to work, and people, Nigeria will still benefit from it. It is inexplicable for us to have iron ore and we are importing steel. Why are buildings collapsing in Nigeria? It's because people are cutting corners, because of the high cost of importing. Now, it's going to be more difficult in this country because our currency is collapsing almost on a daily basis. So the situation now is we must look inward. Our budget must be targeted at wealth creation, job creation, not for expenditures. Today, the budget that we have is more for expenditures. We are not talking about job creation. We are not talking about wealth creation. You can't just explain it. This is a plan that will earn the nation foreign exchange earnings within West Africa, Africa, and outside Africa itself. Apart from the fact that Nigeria is a huge market for steel consumption.
Well, you advocate that Kogi State government should take over the project, but then we know that just like, Senator, can you hear me?
As Kogi State,
I can hear you now.
As Kogi State got the financial wherewithal, given the sheer size of that complex.
The Kogi State government will get foreign support. Investors will come in, and the passion at which the Kogi government will go into it will be different from the way the federal government is treating this project. It's something in our state, and we have a government that is determined to revolutionize the state. If you hand over Iron Steel Complex to Kogi State government, what they need to do is and it is there, it's just inexplicable for 7 years. Like you said, you
afraid that we're having connectivity issues with you.
Already
I'm afraid we're having
if you go there, you will see them manufacturing items. I was at Ajaokuta Iron Steel Complex. Hello?
Go ahead. You're making a point.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that
if you look at the potentials of Iron and Steel Complex in Ajaokuta, it is just inexplicable for that project to be abandoned the way it is. You can't just explain it. In fact, you will wonder if Nigeria is governed by colonial masters, because this is what will create wealth for our nation, create job opportunities, increase our capacity for technological development, and we are abandoning the project. Is it not better for the federal government to ask the state government to take over the project? It is better. When you talk about concession, it's giving our collective wealth to the hands of some opportunists. We have seen those things in time past. Has it worked in Nigeria? Has concession worked in this country? It will be handed over to some policy, to some opportunists in Nigeria, to some people who will collect our collective wealth at the expense of majority. So I think the time has come for us to speak out. Iron and Steel Complex should be allowed to be handed over to Kogi State government, and I'm not in doubt that it's going to work, because the passion, the commitment will be different from what the federal government is doing. How come Kaduna State government was able to complete a steel plant? Because of the passion, because they know this is their own project. If the federal government is finding difficult to complete this project, hand it over to the state where this project is located, and we're going to get it started. We're going to get it completed. I was at that complex some weeks back. Let me tell you, they manufactured crusher machine. 95% of the raw materials came from Ajaokuta Iron and Steel itself. Now, the question is, if they produce 300 of those crushers I saw they produce in Ajaokuta, it will bring down the cost of building materials, because the stones will be available for you to do construction. But some people will not want it. Some people will want a situation where there is scarcity. People will have to be paid through their nose, and this is the resultant effect of collapsing of buildings, the poor purchasing power of our currency. We are not producing; we are just consuming. So how do you explain it? This is a complex that was conceived to employ 90,000 workers, next to the one in South Korea that presently is employing between 150 to 170,000 workers. Is the one in South Korea is modeled, the one in Ajaokuta is modeled after the one in South Korea, and the one in South Korea is the fourth largest steel plant in the world. Now Ajaokuta would have been maybe the fifth, but you can't just explain. Do you have foreign interference? I can't. Nobody can answer that question. I am a member of the Senate Committee on Solid Minerals, or the Senate, and I know we have discussed Iron and Steel Complex Ajaokuta more than 20 times, and every year they are underfunded. Yes, provisions are made, but the provisions are not just enough to even pay staff salary. If you go there, you ask the question, what is the problem? These raw materials are there, the workers are there, competent staff are there, but nobody is funding them. Nobody wants this Iron and Steel Complex to take off. For me, I think it's a big problem for Nigeria. One of the greatest challenges of our government today is to provide jobs for people. There are young graduates trooping out. We have many institutions of learning trooping out millions of graduates. You have Iron and Steel Complex that is capable of employing 90,000 both skilled and unskilled workers, and yet we don't bother about it. Not to talk of the fact that we needed to be creating wealth now to improve our currency, our foreign exchange earning. No, we don't have to be economists to know that if you are not producing, you get nothing. Nigeria is just a consuming nation. We are not ready to produce, and you can't explain it, because God has endowed us with everything that is required to make our nation great. This Iron and Steel Complex is good enough for even West African nations to hold on to, not to talk of our nation. It will be generating between $7 to $10 billion every year for our nation, and yet we don't bother. So the question is, what are the obstacles? Who are the problem of this country? Who are those people who don't want Nigeria to move forward? Is it the colonial masters? Is it the colonial master, or within our nation? Are there people who don't want this country to move forward? These are the fundamental questions we have to ask. Iron and Steel Complex is crucial.
Distinguished Senator, if you can hear me.
Go ahead with the question.
Can you hear me, distinguished Senator? I want you to paint the picture. I want you to paint a picture of how you felt when you went into that place, seeing the whole area covered by...
My brother, if you visit Iron and Steel Complex, you'll be, in fact, if you are a patriotic Nigerian, you will feel like shedding tears for our country. In fact, you'll be asking questions, what is the problem with our leaders? That's the question that will come to your mind. It is just inexplicable, it's unpardonable. You can't just explain what are the problems. This is a complex that is producing. One of the reports I did in my first age as a journalist was.
Yeah, I'm afraid we're having connectivity issue one way or the other, but definitely we will try to establish all of these reconnection back to him. But so one of the things that he said, because I was just going to ask him, government has no business in business. If you're asking the federal government to hand it over to Kogi State government, then we begin to talk about the issue of leadership. So how are we so sure that if it's still within the hands of government, things will work out rather than privatizing it?
He's only offering an alternative. You see, before he came on, we also expressed our concerns about concessioning. When you give such a state-owned projects or properties to some Shylock businessmen, they come in with this feeling of they are coming to make profit. That is if they don't strip us of all the assets. And the fear is there. However, still talking about handing it over to God, I also have my fears. Especially when you look at individuals who are in power. You begin to worry. If you have a governor who is patriotic, who is forward-looking, if you have somebody like the Tinubu we had in Lagos in 1999, when he came in, doing with so much zeal, he had the roadmap of what he wanted to do, he saw the problems. If you have someone like that in Kogi State today, I will voluntarily and willingly and happily say, yes, let's try that. A trial, I would say. But let's try that. It may just be what we need. But where you still have people battling to pay salaries, where you cannot, you can't find a government that can tar community roads. You know what Ajaokuta entails. It is not a small project.
Absolutely.
It is not a project you want to do a year with. It's not something you want to gamble with. It's a project that, if not properly managed and is given to the state, it can consume the entire earnings of the state and other sectors.
That's why he said that the state government would need
but even in getting foreign partnership, the zeal, that political will to get it done.
I think we have
must be there.
I think we have Senator Osman Adeyemi back. Senator, if you can hear me, we see solutions staring us in the face.
No, he was let him. He was
painting a picture
of
what he saw.
Absolutely. Try to land on your point you were making a little earlier.
You were talking about when you went there as a journalist.
No, I was talking about when I went there. Look, it's not as if the plant is totally dead. They are still doing some skeletal services. They are underfunded in the first instance. When you get there and you go around the plant, you will ask the question, what is the problem of our nation? Because everything that is required to make the plant to function is there. Even the first phase that is almost completed is enough to generate. Don't forget, before it was sold to the Indians, N837 Steel Complex was producing some building producing cables and wires. They can no longer do that now because there's no funding for them. There's no funding. So it's a problem. The issue is we must have the political will. We must summon the political will to execute this, to complete this project. There are some people who believe that there are some foreign powers who do not want Nigeria to complete the complex. But we are an independent nation. When you go to Ajaokuta Iron and Steel and you look at the number of houses that have been completed, Ajaokuta is a community within a community. It's a town of its own. Ajaokuta is bigger than Metama in Abuja. Ajaokuta can be compared with Metama and Wuse together. It's a huge place. But you ask the question, why are they not producing? They are not producing because they are underfunded. And you ask the question, why is it so? We have made requests from the Senate, special request to the executive to fund N837 Steel Complex. Nothing is happening. Nobody is talking about it. Now they came with the joke of concession. You and I know that concession is not what we work in Nigeria. Because people are not patriotic about whatever they are investing. People want to take the collective weight of others. But they forget the fact that the rich man will die the way the poor man will die in the first instance. And when the people get to a point and they have nothing to do, they will revolt. we must guard against what can lead to serious unrest in our nation. We have a huge problem of unemployment. We have a problem of a poor state of our economy. What we need to do is to work towards wealth creation, expanding scope of generating revenue, not just taxing the people, but adding value to the life of the people. And if that is done, Ajaokuta Steel Complex is good enough to bridge the gap of the materials that are needed in construction industry, both building and roads. Why are buildings collapsing? Why is it that we are still importing? They told me in Ajaokuta Steel Complex that all the materials that have been imported for the rail lines in Nigeria, the rail and the sleepers, can be produced in Ajaokuta Steel Complex. And I asked them, why was it not produced in Nigeria? They said, well, they didn't provide the funding for them. So you ask, what's our problem as a nation? Is it for us to be creating jobs for other nations at the expense of our own nation? Now, when we talk this way, people say we are not patriotic. But I think the way to be patriotic is to highlight the problems, the shortcomings, so that we can improve upon them and move our nation forward and make this country a country which every one of us be proud to say we are Nigerians. There are a lot of graduates are trooping out every day. More universities are being registered. Polytechnics. Where will this graduate be working? Ajaokuta Steel Complex is fundamental for economic development. It's fundamental for the technological takeoff of Nigeria. It's crucial to our life.
All right, Derek has a question for you.
It is what is required for Nigeria to move from a developing nation to a developed nation.
You express fear about funding, because from listening to you, it's like you feel, I am beginning to think that you feel that funding the complex is actually the problem and not any other thing. Are you now considering the idea of public-private participation? By this I mean, why are we not talking about, okay, let's bring people who has the fund to invest in the business while it's still in the hands of government? Are you thinking in that direction?
It's not a bad idea, but you see, if we are patriotic as Nigerians, you will not dispute the fact that you have some Nigerians. When you gather some 10, 15 Nigerians, they can provide the funding that is required. Ajaokuta Steel Complex, they are asking for 200 billion naira to be able to be producing local needs of Nigeria. Just 200 billion. And I think it's something we can generate in our nation here, even within the complex, the country. Look, it is the fact that we are most Nigerians who are endowed, who are blessed, who have the resources, they prefer to invest outside this country. People take money in Nigeria and take it outside this country. And they don't believe in our nation. This is the problem. People are funding money in this country. They are go and check the foreign banks. Go and check those who own accounts abroad. They can bring back this money. And we can revamp some of these ailing industries without necessarily even getting foreign investors. It is not, if they will not come with their money, for me, I'm not in doubt that my state government will be very willing to take over the burden of putting Ajaokuta Steel Complex back on track and completion. It's just the will. Once you know this is our own, most people who are running the affairs of this country, they are sentimental, and that's why Nigeria has not moved forward. People do not see things as our collective wealth. They do not see it our nation. They see it, where is it located? Who are the owners? What is the tribe of those people? These are the problem of this country. Until when we have people who are patriotic, who see Nigeria as one united nation, and you work towards liberating our people from abject poverty and penury, and you want our nation to stand shoulder high with other nations of the world, you are not producing. What do you want us? How do we improve our currency? People are talking about exchange rate. What do you want to do with the exchange rate when you are not producing? We produce nothing. Ajaokuta Steel Complex is crucial. It's the life of any modern nation, and we don't bother about it. I hold the view that there are investors, there are Nigerians who will be willing to invest. Once you ask a state government to come into it, there are Nigerians who will come willingly.
Kindly, Senator. Thank you
and
very
they will put in their more resources.
Right. Yeah, your point is made. Thank you very much. We can see the passion you're speaking, talking about this particular issue, especially with the advocacy that it should be brought back to Kogi State. We'll see how all of these things go, because we have a lot of solutions, staring us in the face. We'll say thank you to Senator representing Kogi West, Senatorial District at the National Assembly, Senator Smart Adeyemi. Thank you very kindly.
We'll get there. The Nigeria of your dream will come to
My pleasure.
reality.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you very kindly. Before we go on this very break, BK, I wanted to react to this. You know, he talked about so many things, you know, solutions. You also offered some solutions. So we have these solutions, you know, staring us in the face, but we are not willing to do it. Is this to say that those who are in power are not just willing to do? Is it a willpower, or they know the solutions, they're not willing to do it?
Well, a suggestion may not necessarily be the solution. He has suggestions. All of us have suggestions. People have different ideas as per how the problem can be solved. Those ideas may not necessarily be solutions, but they are ideas that we can still try to see whether they can help us achieve our aim at the end of the day. One thing is certain. Senator Smart, being the senator representing that constituency, is passionate, is mad about the fact that we let Ajaokuta Steel Complex rot away, and he wants a solution. I, as a Nigerian, seeing how much we are spending importing, that's 2 quarters, so they are not saying the whole year, 870 something billion in just 2 quarters. And they may not even be, in my view, the highest, the 2 highest quarters in terms of our expenditure over the course of 1 year. For example, during the dry season, construction work, they do a lot more construction work. So during that time, we probably will spend a lot more importing what we have in abundance. We import refined crude, we import petrol that we have in abundance. And because we import petrol, we are unable to benefit even from the windfall that this Ukraine war is, because it's a windfall for oil-producing nations. A country like Saudi Arabia that has so many refineries, some of them dedicated to export, they are enjoying now. In our own case, it's a cost, because the higher the price goes up in the international market, the more subsidy, the higher the subsidy bill, you know. And the higher the subsidy bill, the less money that we can use to develop other sectors. So it's a terrible situation that we find ourselves in our country.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Well, do stay with us here on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. We take a break and we still have more issues to discuss. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us here on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. Now, for a long time, many security experts blamed the prolonged war against Boko Haram terrorists on the presence of fifth columnists in the military. The recent suicide committed by Lance Corporal, an instructor with the Nigerian Army Special Forces in Gaidam, Yobe State, after being exposed as a Boko Haram agent and collaborator, confirms that assertion. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Rabo, has expressed outrage over activities of such fifth columnists and connivance of troops with terrorists and bandits in a letter to field and operational commanders titled, quote, "Need to educate personnel on the implications of collaborating with the enemy," end of quote. General Lucky Rabo urged them to take appropriate actions to forestall such incidents. BK, let me start with you because of this issue of insecurity. But recall that the CDS sometime in 2021 denied the allegations by Sheikh Gumi that soldiers are colluding with terrorists and that those harboring such thoughts were hallucinating and they need their heads to be checked. But then he has made a sharp U-turn.
Maybe at that time I didn't have enough evidence, but he was the one in that memo. He was reeling out evidence, reeling out sufficient evidence. He talked about. He said he talked about an increase in cases of aiding and abetting by personnel. He talked about a soldier arrested for conniving with confirmed terrorist informant, Babagana Kura. He talked about another soldier who was arrested with 162 rounds of 7.62 mm special 60 rounds of NATO and IED materials, concealed in a traveling bag. According to the CDS, the arrests are indicative of insider action that has continued and has potential impact on operations. So these are his own words. These are his own words. He did not just send that memo to them. He detailed cases. So that those commanders and will know that, look, we have a big problem on our hands. There was also the case of 2 Nigerian soldiers attacked to Operation Yaki in Kaduna, who were arrested in March for allegedly kidnapping some individuals. Another soldier attacked to one div Kaduna, Private Danladi Hadao, was arrested along with 2 vigilantes for collaborating with bandits. Yeah, you have vigilantes collaborating with bandits. You have soldier collaborating with bandits. Sometime last year, a soldier and his wife was arrested. What were they arrested for in Zamfara? What were they arrested for? For supplying uniforms to bandits. They will supply army uniform to bandits. Now, when bandits wear army uniform, you will be confused. If they are manning the road, you will think, oh, these are Nigerian troops who have come to secure you. But they are bandits just wearing Nigerian army uniform. We've asked the question repeatedly, how do they get to access to these uniforms? But a soldier was arrested in Zamfara along with his wife for the crime of conniving or supplying bandits with uniform. You see, we will never win this war if we do not focus on how we can stop this nonsense going on. Because your colleagues can't be risking their lives, putting their lives on the line, working day and night, risking stepping on IEDs, while you are sabotaging them from inside. You can imagine an instructor. An instructor,
weapon instructor.
With the special forces, being and working with Boko Haram elements who went to kill people in Gaidam. So this thing has always been there. One commander was telling me the other day, he said, see, Jide, these days, we don't announce ahead of time to our troops about a mission. We do it at the last minute so that they won't be able to
sabotage the process.
Sometimes they say, oh yeah, bring all your phones. So when the commander is addressing the troops, the phones are on the table. You have no way of quickly making a real-time call to the bandits. And I'm happy that even in this statement that the CDS mentioned, he talked about 60 rounds of 7.62 NATO weapon. There was a time that I mentioned on this program that some Boko Haram elements use NATO weapons. Of course, this NATO weapon, somebody went on social media writing rubbish that, what did they say? They were talking about NATO weapons. Here is the CDS talking about recovery of NATO weapon from a Nigerian soldier collaborating with the terrorists. Now, these NATO weapons could be accessed in different ways. If Boko Haram attacks in a Cameroon army base, because they were active in northern Cameroon, Fotokol, all those areas. If they attack a Cameroon army base, or even a Chadian army base, we've seen them attack Chadian army bases. We've seen Boko Haram kill about 100 Chadian soldiers in one day. And when they attack a base to kill soldiers, their main intention is to steal weapons. Now, if they steal weapons, the Cameroonians and the Chadians have a lot of NATO-grade weapons because France, you know, some of the weapons from France, yes, they are NATO-grade weapons. They supply Cameroon, they supply Chad. Some of them also were weapons that they were using that the NATO supplied rebels in Libya and ended up in the black market. So when I said that, I wasn't saying something that was not real. I'm happy that even the CDS himself said it, that they recovered NATO weapons. So these weapons, once you see this M16, the M16 rifle, the M16 is better and more efficient than even the AK-47. Though the AK-47 is durable, is strong, it can last in bad weather and all that. It doesn't jam anyhow. But what you can do with the M16, the American M16, which is a NATO-grade weapon, what you can do with it, well, you can't do with most rifles. So if terrorists now grab it, it will now be shocking to you that they said that they have NATO weapons. But of course, some of these MNJ people, they have access to NATO weapons, NATO-grade weapons.
Right. Dari, that's why sometimes we ask a lot of questions. Why are these guys so emboldened enough to be able to face the Nigerian soldiers? But then, this seems to me like a question of patriotism. Why would a soldier who has sworn to protect the nation's sovereignty and integrity, colluding or conniving with the saboteurs?
Because that's where
with the criminals, rather.
That's where his patriotism is. He's loyal to whatever cause he thinks they are pursuing. Or it could be that he has been financially induced. Don't rule that out. I spoke with a major in the Nigerian army who is on the war front. And he said one major problem the fighters are facing now is the issue of trust. Now, you are going to battle with 16 people, for example, in a vehicle.
Yeah.
And you cannot as much as trust 4. Out of 16, you can't trust 4. You can only speak of maybe just one person that this man will watch my back. You are going to battle and you are afraid that these 12 people can turn their gun on me anytime.
Yeah.
Your own men. He said when you have a force that is fighting with such in such situation, you cannot expect the best out of such a force. And now the CDS is literally confirming this. We saw a Nigerian army officer committing suicide after being discovered in compromising situation, helping the enemies with information. Is an instructor, a weapon instructor. He probably is one of those who train these men on how to use weapons they steal from our own fighters.
Yeah.
So you can, the agony with which our loyal officers, because you can only look at the army and say, well, maybe out of every 12 disciples, there will be one Judas. It is not enough to tar the entire army with a brush of disloyalty.
Yeah.
These are men fighting out there, risking their lives. We are praying day in, day out that may they not fall victims to the bullets of Boko Haram. Are we to now add to
bullets of their colleagues?
The bullets of their colleagues. You see the agony they go through? And day in, day out, we hear people saying, we should have won this war. We should have won this war. In this kind of situation, when our men have been infiltrated, when our men have been recruited as agents for Boko Haram, the question we should be asking ourselves is, why do we find situations like this? And I will answer you to say, it didn't start yesterday. Way back in 2014, we had the president who said, even his own council, his own administration has been infiltrated by Boko Haram members.
Hold your thoughts. You continue on that thought. We've got Victor from Enugu joining us on the show. Victor, the ball is in your court.
Yeah, good day, everybody there, Babajide and the code. Please, I have a question, a little bit related to this.
Victor, would you like to speak up so we can hear you? You're sounding far away.
Yes, can you hear me? So, I don't know if you can hear me. I have a question for Jide.
Yeah. Fantastic, go ahead.
The latest arms, this thing that America said they're going to supply. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, do you have any information concerning the fighter, helicopter, and all that stuff? That's what I want to ask. Please give us a little bit update on it. Thank you.
Well, I saw that story too, but I don't have anything fresh. Beyond what you have read, I don't have anything fresh on that. Maybe later on, when I've spoken to the Nigerian Army authorities, I can then brief you. But I'll be happy if America can supply us ground attack helicopters, because the ones we use are largely from the Russians, as the MIs, Mi-35P, Mi-35M, and the rest of them. They are Russian-made ground attack helicopters. They are the best for us in fighting this kind of insurgency. And they were very useful to the Colombians, you know, when they were fighting an insurgency. So I will be happy to, if the Americans can supply us those helicopters, because some of them are multi-role equipment. You can use some of them for troops insertion. You can use some of them as ambulances, air ambulances, and they can actually be fitted with a weapon system that enables us to take out the enemy with them. So I'm really excited to read about that. I hope that what we read is the complete truth.
All right, thank you very kindly, Victor, for calling in to the program. Derek, you were actually on the thought. I'd like you to round up.
My take is that the psychological effect of developments like this on the fighters is such that even if the army gets the best weapon, even if those fighting men are equipped with the best ammunitions to take on the enemies, if there is this fear that the man next to me could just be an agent, the morale is low. The fear of death from close quarters is worse than the fear of death on the battlefield. And then, since 2014, when we started hearing about infiltration in the government, infiltration in the army, infiltration among senior officers, junior fighters, we are still at that point now, to the extent that we have an instructor working for, neither you nor me will be able to fathom out how many years he spent colluding with this fighter, I mean, these rebels. Neither you nor me will be able to say this is the number of ammunition he actually handed over to them, nor the number of his colleagues he facilitated their death or killings.
Wow.
And you can imagine that it is men like this who, like BK was saying, the army will sit down, design a very good attack strategy. Then somebody will leak.
So a lot of ambushes. And
people, they are Nigerians walking to ambushes.
A lot of ambushes are the result
and
of...
we keep losing men on a daily basis.
Sabotage.
Because saboteurs are in the force. It is something that will not help our fight.
How would you be giving information about the movement of troops to the enemy? I mean, this is just unfair.
And then, BKO, I was going to ask, sorry, is it that in the process of recruiting new fighters, we are recruiting saboteurs? Do you think that's a possibility?
It's possible, but there are also people who may have been in the armed forces for years who have sympathy for maybe Boko Haram, because the Boko Haram thing is an ideology. So there could be some people who have sympathy for them, and the army had arrested such people in the past. Even some people who had been disengaged from the army, some of them went to join Boko Haram, and the army was able to arrest such people. So, as we said, who are the people teaching them how to use? Because I saw a Boko Haram fighter in Goza driving one of our tanks, and I'm like, it's not everybody who can ride the tank.
Because we've got Peter from Bauchi joining us on the show. Peter, make your point. Peter, make your point. Can you hear me? Peter, are you there? I'm afraid we lost Peter. Well, BKO, it said that...
Okay, good afternoon, Mr.
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I listened to your from the beginning of this section, and I used to fight the corruption, and this is one of the things I was saying last time, that the multiplier effect of the corruption last time. Hello? Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Peter, go ahead. Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, I said this is the multiplier effect of corruption I was talking about 3 days ago when I called to the studio. In the rest of the soldiers that collude with the terrorists, there are many of them in the system that I feel that they need to fish out. And the problem started from the recruitment process. How did they recruit these people? Yeah, you get a proper check on them before putting them into the system. And some people recruited them mainly for this purpose, so they can cause havoc in our system. And if you look at what is happening in the system, you see that most of these soldiers that collude with terrorists, they learn it from the boss. A soldier who went to Northeast or an officer who spent less than 6 months and building mansions. Soldiers are seeing it that they are using their money to do some kind of things instead of using them to train and to feed the soldiers. They use it for different things. And you see that so I now learn that the only way they can make the money is to collude these people, which is very wrong. Please check our recruitment process. Except these surrendering terrorists that are recruiting in the system need to be checked. Look at our training institution in Kaduna that you will see a village. When soldiers are doing exercise, they be going along with soldiers. How they don't know how they do something.
Right, Peter, thank you very kindly. Thank you, your point is made. BK, I was going to ask you a question. There is this Yoruba saying that says, the weevil eating the vegetable lives within the vegetable. And he also said that, is it that when you're when you're in the battlefront, you have to be now being conscious of the person you're fighting alongside with? How do they get into the army? You also said it's possible that they are sympathetic to them. But is it also, because what he probably might be thinking is a police officer who was arrested, recently arrested, and is being investigated for gyrating to an occultic song. So is it possible that these people were part of this people before they got into the Nigerian army?
Well, it's difficult for me to believe that some of them, just for the money, decided to become informants to terrorists, informants to bandits, just for the money. Then there are those who had sympathy for Boko Haram. There were those who had sympathies for Boko Haram at the beginning, because Boko Haram came like something founded on religion. Ideology, and all. Yeah. Once you bring in religion, people's brains get twisted. They want to do what they believe that, okay. They become fanatical about certain issues once the religion is brought into it. So there were those of them who had sympathy for these guys. But it was much more rampant in around 2013, 2014, and early 2015. I thought that the leadership of the army that came in, they were able to identify some of those guys, and so they were sent packing. But eternal vigilance is very, very necessary at this point. What happened in Gaydam should tell us that there are still a lot more of those people who will rather sell the lives of their colleagues because of money. And I've been told too that for some of these bandits, that the military knows some of their locations and choose not to go and take them on. What could be the reason for this? If we want to win this war, we must recognize that these guys are enemies and that we need to take them out. We cannot afford to be complacent. We have to take them out because they are a real threat to our nation.
Hopefully, now that they know that there are saboteurs within the system, they will also walk around, ways to resolve this issue so as to, stop them in their tracks at the end of the day. Let's move on to our final issue for today. People have a common saying that you cannot beat a child and tell him or her not to cry. Nigerians are outraged that government is criminalizing payment of ransom to kidnappers when it has not done enough to tackle rising kidnapping across the country. Now, the Senate has passed a bill seeking to amend the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013, which, among other things, outlaws payment of ransom to kidnappers and terrorists for the release of any person wrongfully confined, imprisoned, or kidnapped. The move by the lawmakers has attracted public outcry, with many Nigerians describing the bill as unnecessary and unrealistic. In this Journalist Hangout Weekend Special, TVC News' Ayodeji Moradeyo compiled the views of some Nigerians on the matter. Here is the story.
Kidnapping for ransom by gunmen has reached an alarming rate in Nigeria in the last few years, as the country fights to contain the dreaded Boko Haram terrorists in the northeast and bandits across the country. High-profile kidnapping used to be the order of the day before bandits changed gear and began to go for abduction of middle-class and rural people with impunity. Many Nigerians have become victims and made to part with hefty ransom before they regain their freedom. Many school children have also become victims of abduction. Kidnapping prevails despite measures put in place by the government to check it. The Nigerian Police Anti-Kidnapping Squad introduced is striving to stem the menace. But it is hampered by lack of manpower and poor logistics. Recently, the Senate passed a bill seeking to amend the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013. The bill, among other things, seeks to outlaw payment of ransom to kidnappers and terrorists of any person wrongfully confined, imprisoned or kidnapped. The overall import of the bill is to discourage kidnapping for ransom in Nigeria, which has become prevalent in most parts of the country. But the move by the lawmakers has attracted public outcry, with many Nigerians describing the bill as unnecessary. The governor of Bauchi State, Bala Mohammed, expressed his reservation about the issue.
Maybe it's a moral issue, not a legal issue, for which I am not very versed in, but certainly we wouldn't want to be payment to legalize payment of ransom in such a manner that we encourage the spate of abduction and whatsoever. I think the communities, the individuals are free to exercise their citizenship right to pay ransom or not, but they should not be prevented by a legal framework. That's my feeling.
In Ondo State, lawyers and other professionals are also reacting to the passage of the bill by the lawmakers.
I believe is that they are within this.
They say criminalizing ransom payment by the National Assembly shows the wide gap that exists between the lawmakers and their constituents.
Kidnapping has come to stay with us, either we like it or not. So many families are now in agony because they have not been able to get back their kidnapped relatives. So they want to do everything possible to get their loved ones. If we now debar them from doing that, you are preventing them from having a continuous sharing of love with their family members, and nobody would like this. So if you cannot get their family members for them, you can prevent them from paying ransom to get their family members. That would be an injustice. That would be unjust.
First place, the state is failing its fundamental duty to protect its citizens. The state is showing total helplessness in freeing those who are unfortunately kidnapped, and the state is coming back to criminalize, efforts, self-help by those who want to secure the release of their loved ones. I think that makes no sense. Nobody pays ransom as a cheerful giver. No. People pay ransom out of sorrowful heart. So if the state is helpless, cannot secure the release of a kidnapped person, how then do we tell their loved ones that, look, it's also criminal for you to even secure the life, the release of your loved ones? It makes no sense. I mean, even scripturally, we are told in the Bible, and I think that is in Proverbs chapter 13 verse 8, that the ransom of a man's life is his riches. So if you have to pay ransom to secure your life, not willingly though, but if that is the last option.
You also have to consider the mindset of the loved ones of these people in captivity. You understand? You don't criminalize their efforts to release their loved ones from the gulag of these nefarious characters, particularly when the government is doing next to nothing about rescuing them. So as far as I'm concerned, the National Assembly is on a frolic of its own. The National Assembly is showing itself to be what it is, a house that is not in touch with its constituents.
Some activists in Osho State also described the action of the lawmakers as insensitivity, particularly at a time Kidnapping is rampant and government has not shown enough zeal to curb it.
Vulnerable people of this country who are majority victim of kidnapping have no choice than to pay. And the reality is, they pay through their nose. Nobody pay with happiness. They pay because they want to save a family member from being killed. And how can you now say such a person deserve to go to jail for 15 years for rescuing their family member? Most of the time, their husband, wife.
It's laughable, and it's a systematic failure. A situation where everything is commodified. This is what you get. I think the priority has been left undiscussed. And if the country is the way it is today, I think the National Assembly equally needs to be held responsible. Now, what legislation has they been doing? The division in the governance of this country, we are not feeling it anywhere.
Some respondents from the nation's capital also bear their minds on the matter.
It's criminalized by 15 years by the Senate, which have just passed recently. You know, how are they likely, how is the state likely to enforce it? Owing to the fact that a lot of these ransoms that are paid in this country, one, you know, it is not paid through formal channels. You know, there's no statistics in regards to that. You know, there's no particular way in which the government will know or proof of such payment. These are money paid in Ghana must go in the middle of the night or, you know, on marked locations.
As it is, the country is still in search of the way out of incessant kidnapping for ransom.
Well, interesting times. Dari, let me start with you. What do you make of this development? Do not pay ransom to the terrorists.
We Yorubas have a saying that says,
it farts in your mouth and then add salt. So you cannot swallow the fat, and
the salt you are unwilling to spit out.
No, it should be sugar. Maybe honey. Honey is better because
well, whatever it is, sweetening anyway. Because rather, I think the discourse should be about how do we ensure nobody's kidnapped. Cannot beat a child and insist you must not cry.
Serious beating.
Because kidnapping is pummeling, not just beating. That's pummeling. Then you expect the child to. It's just that in this country we get to hear about acts that become laws without even as much as a public hearing. I tell you, it happens in this country. Otherwise, questions should have been asked this.
No, the right public hearing and people
will go there. I will not ask the right questions.
People
they
oppose
it. You should have asked the senators. Have you had one of your relatives kidnapped before? I have experienced it. A classmate of mine was kidnapped on Kogi Edo Road. We are on the same platform, secondary school platform. And, you know, when they asked him to call, knowing the home he's from, the person he called was the chairman of my set, who quickly rushed to the platform and said, so person have been kidnapped. And the numbers of the kidnappers were given to us. And I was one of those selected to be negotiating with them. The last time I spoke with the kidnapper, they were asking for 4 million. And within an hour or two, we were able to raise like 600,000. And they used his own phone to send us a video of how they were using a dagger to slice his body. And they told we have quickly called back that we have 600,000. He said, Mr. Man, or whatever, that if you call back again, and what you are telling me is not that you want to pay, that I will shoot this man. That anytime we call again without telling him we are ready to pay, we will shoot the man. In that circumstance, somebody will now say, you go to jail if you pay. We even had to pay the money we transferred money. And, you know, we provided evidence, everything to the police eventually when it was released. Right. They did not follow the lead. It was a POS on our own, using some of our own colleagues who are in this or that. They were able to trace that the POS, the person holding the POS in Bauchi. We provided evidence when it was released, everything. The police did not follow that lead.
But government can tell us now, don't pay. And you don't pay the kid. The guy told us that where they kept them, that you found many rotting bodies, bones of human beings who, and they were told that, see, these people, their people did not pay money in time. And they killed them. So for you to tell Nigerians don't pay, it can only happen when you can assure that we assure you that nobody will ever be kidnapped again. Or when your person is kidnapped within 24 hours, we will effect the release. If government is not going to be able to tell us that, I don't think it's morally right to say don't pay ransom. When the IG at the time, a sitting IG told us the Nigerian police is overwhelmed. And the military leadership once told us they don't have the capacity to confront all the insecurities at the same time. So people will find a way of ensuring the safety of their kidnapped relatives,
well,
obviously.
BKO, the Senate claims that the intention is to block the source of money, which seems to be the motivation for kidnappers. So it appears that other strategies have actually failed. And don't you think it might not be out of place to check the effectiveness of this so-called legislation?
Well, one thing I know is that if today the relation of a senator is kidnapped, if they ask for 50 million, they will raise that 50 million. If they ask for 100 million, they will quickly look for that 100 million. We've seen people pay as much as 100 million as ransom for an individual.
One of the abductees.
So, well, you don't have evidence.
So we heard.
But we also know that they couldn't have left him just like that. But we don't know how much he paid.
Well, in the spirit of Ramadan, anyway.
Yes, we don't know how much. They also said because of his age. But so I know someone who is still being held.
And he's older than
a grandmother who is still being held.
Yes.
Is around 90 years.
And
he's still with them. Only for them to come. It's gullible Nigerians who simply believe such things. But that's not the what we are here to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm saying that if someone in the Senate or even their relation is kidnapped, if they ask for 100 million, they will mobilize that money, they will pay.
Yeah, we've seen lawmakers being kidnapped and released in 48 hours.
So it's not, see, look at what section 14 of the bill says. It says the bill was sponsored by Senator Ezenwa Francis Onyewuchi, Imo East Senatorial District. If Ezenwa Francis is kidnapped today, the senator from Imo East, and they ask for 150 million, they will look for the money. The leadership of the Senate, from Ahmad Lawan and the rest of them, they will mobilize that money quickly to come out to secure the release of Onyewuchi. So let's
before
not
any other thing.
People, when they say that the Senate behave like people who are disconnected, I believe so. We've seen situations in which the police would even advise you, you better go and pay the ransom. Look, it takes someone close to you being kidnapped to know the kind of mess that we have found ourselves in our country. Because when my auntie was kidnapped in Kogi, it got to a point they were not picking my calls anymore. And I thought that, look, oh, Jide, you know this one, you know that one. They stopped picking my calls at the point. And what did we have to do? We had to pay ransom because the woman was kidnapped close to my village, maybe about 4 or 5 kilometers to my village. But they made them to trek for up to 7 days inside the forest. And we ended up paying ransom in the Akoko Edo area.
Of Edo State.
All the way from Kogio.
The same thing.
They passed through Ajawa in Ondo State, the forest. And then ended up, yes, they made them to walk. That's why some people die in their hands, because some don't have the energy.
And
they don't have the endurance.
Battling ailments.
Yeah, some have ailments, you know. There are some who don't have access to their drugs.
And they take hard drugs. They can actually navigate anywhere.
Even without hard drugs, some of them they're already used to that life. Yeah. They are used to that life, so it's nothing to them. Now, going to that section 14 says, anyone who transfers funds, makes payment, or colludes with an abductor or kidnapper or terrorist to receive any ransom for the release of any person who has been wrongfully confined, imprisoned, or kidnapped is guilty of a term of imprisonment of not less than 15 years. So, what I would like to see them do or concentrate on is how we can ensure that kidnapping becomes a thing of the past. And we can leverage on security. Kidnappers are using phone to negotiate for ransom. It's a national disgrace. Using phone to negotiate ransom, we can't track them.
What are we even talking
we
about?
can't track them. We can't catch them. Police sometimes, when somebody has been released by bandits, police will claim that they rescued. Will claim that they rescued.
Cover up the ransom.
Deceive themselves that they rescued. There was a man that papers carried the story that he was rescued. He started calling me. They didn't rescue me. Oh, we paid ransom. Oh, they didn't rescue me. Remember, it happened even to Ogbodo, Christian Ogbodo, the Nigerian footballer based in Italy. We claimed that we rescued.
He paid.
Whereas it was the club that sent about $50,000 or so. They had to, the family had to say, no, we didn't rescue. Yes. So if we have a police that encourages people to go and pay ransom,
you need to turn around.
What are we talking about? So you cannot stop people from expressing their love for their loved ones by quickly paying ransom rather than watch their loved ones killed. These are not the kind of laws that we expect these people to be making. They should show that they are not out of touch. And I know that a lot of Nigerian politicians, big politicians, are big hypocrites. The day their own relations get kidnapped,
You won't even hear about it.
if it's someone that they like, which law? Don't even come up with a law that will be difficult to enforce. See Baba Falai, as famous as a man was, or is, he was kidnapped, and we were told that he was rescued. The man said, no.
We had to settle with them.
They didn't rescue me. We paid ransom.
That was
and they dropped me. He even mentioned where they dropped him after the ransom was paid. Yeah. So we have a problem because the security agents are unable to rescue people. Once it happens and the report is lodged, they find it extremely difficult to rescue people. And there's evidence that some of them are even conniving with these bandits. So since they can't rescue, the people will take it upon themselves to do whatever it costs, whatever is necessary to ensure that their loved one comes out of captivity. It can't be a bad idea to spend your money to secure the life of another person. Nigerians will not obey this law. That is if the president passes it. Maybe the president may not even pass it because it's a ridiculous law. Do your best to secure our people, secure their lives. If you can't do it, the same way Nigerians are providing water for themselves, the same way Nigerians are providing electricity for themselves, they will provide security for themselves. They will secure the release of their loved ones in captivity if they can do it. They won't wait for the armed forces because they know that waiting for them is risky. That person may come back to you in a body bag.
Right. We've got Uche from Nnewi joining us on the show. Uche, make your point. Uche, if you can hear me. Hello, Uche. Make your point quickly.
Uche, how far now?
Well,
Uche calling from Nnewi.
They keep us waiting. Yes.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Understandable. Make your point quickly.
Yeah, this is Uche calling from Nnewi. I think this present government. Let me just talk about this government. You know, when somebody first mathematics and English language, no matter what you do, they'll get that you are fair, or even if you pass other subjects. Like Babajide will always talk about this government, doing well in infrastructure. But I want to believe, okay, if you are building infrastructure and everybody now dies, so who are you building the infrastructure for? Even that infrastructure, to me, is questionable. Now, coming to the issue of kidnapping. Now, how can you now not give somebody life? And you now want to penalize the person for buying generator? I mean, how can you tell me, okay, you did not give me life, and you are penalizing me for buying generator? That is what is happening here. Yeah? You cannot say the people that are kidnapped, and you are not saying that they should not pay ransom, that they want to criminalize ransom. I mean, it's not easy. It's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah? And this government promised a change. And look at where we are now. It's terrible.
Your point is made, Uche. Your point is made. Because of our time, we need to race against time. Dari, let's quickly, your final thoughts on this. It's one thing for you to enforce, to make a law. It's another thing for you to enforce it. So do you see this as enforceable?
It's not a law that can be enforced, obviously. It's not a law that will be popular. And when a law is unpopular, the people will resist it. I insist, make kidnapping unattractive to kidnappers. Don't try to make saving my relative unattractive to me. No. I'll go out of my way to ensure my relative comes back to me alive. If I have assurance that if I leave this matter in the hands of the Nigerian police or the Nigerian army, my man or woman will come back home, then I can go home and rest. Trusting in kidnappings happen abroad too. It's not as if it doesn't happen there. But in a matter of time, you talk about those who are kidnapped has been rescued.
You can see it because the CCTV are there.
Footages of efforts being made by an American was kidnapped here in Nigeria. American forces came and ensured his own safety. Yes. Not that even after, like my friend I was telling you about, do you know that the Edo State Police Commissioner paraded them and said these are people they rescued? I took up the matter with him on phone, and everywhere I spoke with the spokesperson of the state. I was showing, I sent transaction receipts and everything. That this man in ordinary singlet, this bloody, with blood all over him, is our friend. See, this is what we paid. We sent a video of how the kidnappers were cutting him, everything. Rather than face the reality, the then CP was appealing that we should not embarrass the police. I still have the footages of discussion. It's unfortunate that this is what happens when we should secure lives and properties. We are trying to save face. Face saving will not take us anywhere. If you don't make kidnapping unattractive, if people get kidnapped in Nigeria, Nigerians will pay ransom. And as long as Nigerians pay ransoms to save their loved ones, you cannot send them to jail. It will not be something you'll be able to do. It will not happen.
All right. Quickly, your final thoughts on this before we call it a wrap. We just have less than a minute.
Yeah, we have no choice. We have to defeat banditry. Whatever strategy we use, we have to defeat banditry. It's just a big problem in our country. And I do not believe in criminalizing ransom payment, except where it is obvious that it was unnecessary. And it will only be unnecessary when our armed forces, when our policing system is so effective that once kidnapping happens, you know, in quick time, they can rescue people. So, but as things stand now, look at those people now, those train passengers. Have they been rescued?
Still there.
Still there. So one even delivered baby right there. So if I have a sister there amongst them, and they called me that look, you have to pay ransom. Will I wait for government?
Definitely not.
To secure them before paying?
Definitely not. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Babajide, Kolade Tutuju, and Dari Defalcon. I've been hanging out with you guys. Thank you so much for your keenness of insight. Let us tell you, our viewers, that tomorrow's edition of Journalist Hangouts will be having the former governor of Imo State, Rochas Okorocha. Tomorrow, that's Monday, and also on Tuesday, we'll also be having Ngige, that's Minister of Labour. Yeah, yes, Chris Ngige will be here on Tuesday. So we've got packed full program for you. Do ensure that you join in as you've always done. That's all on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. Join us tomorrow for the regular episode of the program at 5 p.m. You can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11:30. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.